Pesach. I just want to ask, did you get, there was a little problem with the email and the shlichot said, did you get the PDF of Pesach?
We got it last night, yes.
Okay, good. We don't need them to continue, but it's for those who have seen through some, it will be a good help for the shiur, and for those who haven't, it's a good repetition. And in addition, they're very, especially as a part of the halacha, very structured to go through all the topics in a way. Some things we will be more information than what we have in the shiurim. In some things, we will maybe say things more details in this circle of shiurim. We spoke last week about mainly about Chametz. We spoke about the definition of Chametz. We started with speaking about the meaning of Chametz and Matzah in different ways. We spoke about being one side being humble, that the Matzah represent, and in the second hand we spoke about the going out of Egypt, where they hadn't time to let the dough become chametz, and because of that they ate matzot in the way out of Egypt, and so on. And then we spoke about the definition of chametz, how we define chametz. Went into some details around that. We even spoke about selling the chametz. The importance of chametz being that it has to be removed. We saw in the Torah that a mitzvah to remove the chametz itself. We spoke about the chametz, the forbidden to be eaten, but also to be physical in your home or to be seen, and to be enjoyed. That are several things we spoke about last time. We will continue today with speaking about Chametz, and I really hope we'll have time to speak about the Matzah also. Matzah is very important in the learning about Chametz and Matzah. So the first thing I want to take up is what we call ta'arovot. When chametz is mixed together with something that isn't chametz, how do we find the new mixture of a soup with pasta? Okay, so there is pasta falls into a soup, as example. Is the whole soup now chametz, or is it not chametz? The pasta is chametz, and we put it in the soup. How would we find that? Yes, Rebecca?
Well, I received the reading last night, but I did get to read some of it. As I understand it, it means the whole soup needs to be thrown away. It's the thing with chametz, it's a lot more strict than, for instance, normal halakha of mixing, for instance, milk and meat. So when mixing milk and meat, if you get something in it, you can remove it as long as it's like a very tiny amount. But with chametz, you have to throw out the whole thing.
Yeah. So as you say, the normal definition of when we have a mixture, the normal definition of a mixture that becomes unkosher, if it's milk that falls into meat, for example, as you say, or a non-kosher meat that falls into a kosher soup and so on, is normally that a very small amount would not make the whole mixture unkosher. Meaning that if it's less, we say today, less than 1 to 60 to the whole meat or the whole dish that it was mixed into, then of course try to take it out if it's possible, but it didn't make the whole dish unkosher. There is important to say a difference between a wet mixture like soup or sauce and so on, and a dry mixture that is even less than 1:60. I won't go into all the details here. That's it when it comes to non-kosher. But it's normally, well, I'd say in a wet mixture, it's 1:60. And that rule is originally also the same when it comes to chametz and non-chametz. But since we're very strict with chametz, Chazal have said, no, we have to be even more careful. And because of that, they have made a rule for Pesach that even a small, tiny amount of chametz into a big amount of non-chametz makes the whole dish unkosher for Pesach. And it means that even 1 to 500, very small amount of chametz makes the whole dish unkosher to Pesach. And this is, therefore, we have to understand that when we say a rule like that, how careful we try to be when it comes to mixtures. When that is said, it's important to add that according to most of the opinions, and that's what is normally kept today, this is only effective, the very small amount of chametz that could not be seen away of, even if it's a very small amount, is only effective in Pesach. Okay, meaning that if the mixture has been done before Pesach, then the chametz is then we see it as if it goes away. I'll give an example. Let's say we make matzot for Pesach. We'll speak later today about matzot. Let's say we eat matzot for Pesach, and in the corn we have some who, for one or another reason, came in contact with water, sat in the sun, and the corn and the seeds themselves have become chametz before we eat them, before we make them to matzot. Okay, so it's a very small amount of beans or corn beans that are now chametz, and we make matzot of them. That is, of course, very problematic, and it's a good chance that in one or another way some corn fell out of in the fields, fell down. There came water, there was rain, and then sun, and it became puftal, and then it's chametz. And now we put it into our matzot that we eat. Since they're a very small amount, of course, we try to find these kind of corns, but it's a very small amount of corns that could happen to. Then, since the mixture in the dough is before Pesach, especially if we bake the matzot before Pesach, of course, then there is no chametz there. And because of that, the matzot are kosher for Pesach and everything is okay. If we would have said that the mixture is even less than 1:60, it would have been almost impossible to make matzot without keeping every corn for themselves and so on and so on. We'll speak about keep an eye on the corn and so on later. So we see that before Pesach, the mixture, if it's a very small, only if it's a very small amount, as I said, less than 1:60, is kosher. After Pesach starts, it's non-kosher. It's important to say, and it's correct for every kind of ta'aravot, mixtures, it's only kosher if the mixture has been made without intention. So we can make a dish before Pesach of soup where we like a very small amount of something chametz in, and we put it in, and we say, oh, but it's only a small amount. The only way ta'arovot, these mixtures, are considered as kosher is if it has been mistaken or without you enjoying it, or you don't want it. If you want it, also a very small amount will make the mixture unkosher. It's correct for Pesach and Chametz questions and other questions also.
Can I ask something?
Yes, of course.
Yes. I understand that the background to the 160 rule is like a thumb rule in order to have something that defines what originally is about taste. That something should not taste of the thing that mixture, and someone came up with 160, then it cannot taste. So, but with this kind of more hard rule with 1 to 200, then it's not about taste anymore. It must be something else that's behind that rule. Could you elaborate on if there is such differences?
Yeah, you're totally right. When it comes to the 160, it says in the Talmud, in the start, they had experts. So you went to a tasting expert, and you asked a non-kosher tasting expert, and you asked, do you taste the rest of the, I don't know what, unkosher meat that was in the, and they could taste the soup and say, no, there's no taste here of it, then it's okay. But since that is very hard to define and to find, and they say we're not expert in test anymore in the exact taste of the food anymore, then as you said, Lars, we went over to 1 to 60. And originally that was also the case, like understanding from the Torah, in our understanding, when it comes to Chametz. But since we try to be so clear with Chametz, has a very different level of seriousness, even when we compare it with non-kosher food. Okay, when we compare it to non-kosher food, it comes to that we're not allowed to enjoy it in Pesach. For example, if I have unkosher food, I can give it to my non-kosher neighbor and they can enjoy it, and I enjoy that they enjoy it, and it's very good. I could give it to my animals to eat. When it comes to Chametz in Pesach, before Pesach, you give it out, you could sell it, you could do, before Pesach, Chametz is kosher food that you're allowed to eat, of course. So of course you're allowed to enjoy it. But in Pesach, you're not allowed to enjoy it at all, you're not to see it. And since it has all the things we spoke about last time, because of that, Chazal have said, there we have to have another degree of mixture also. There is also a difference between Chametz and unkosher food. In a way, we could be easier in our feeling towards a mixture with Chametz in it. Because one who keeps kosher all year knows that if it's something that is made from pig, it's something that is totally out of your mind or your what you want. Chametz is something we normally enjoy and like. And then when there is a mixture between something that it's not non-kosher, it's not only not kosher this week, we could have a feeling of that being more okay in a mixture, and maybe to show how strict the real rule of Chametz is. You shouldn't have any Chametz. You should really take all the Chametz out, especially not when it's mixed in. Chazal made this gezerah that in Pesach, even 1/2000 is making the whole mixture unkosher. So it's important to say it and learn it. There's also another issue when it comes to mixtures generally that is also discussed when it comes to Pesach. Mixtures generally, when the taste that comes from the non-kosher bite, that is, or the non-kosher percent that comes in, if it's giving a bad taste, okay, I have a rotten meat that is unkosher, and I want to throw it to the garbage, and it falls into my soup. But I don't want it. That was terrible. But it's a very small amount or bigger amount, more than 1 to 60. When it's called noten ta'am lifgam, gives a bad taste. In normal food, we normally then say that it's kosher. Because if the mixture is something that not only that I don't want it, but it's making the food worse, then we don't see that as something that ruins the food itself. And when it comes, so the question is, if there is something that is chametz and comes into the food, but is, as I said, rotten or bad taste, does that also is that okay in Pesach or not? And some say that even that is not okay in Pesach. We're so strict that even if the food gives a bad taste, we can't eat it in Pesach. And why is that relevant? How often do we have a situation where we have rotten chametz or rotten meat that falls into our kosher food? I could maybe guess that no one here has seen that kind of situation anytime. But it is very relevant, and I'll explain why, and I hope lots of details to understand the halacha by it here. Where does this rule become very relevant for us? It comes when it comes to our when we want to make food in something. Okay, so it's our plates, of course, in our my English is bad. Sundays morning, griter. Someone help me here. Pots, in our pots.
Stew.
What?
Stew.
Yeah. So what happens then when we use something that was not being used in the past 24 hours? We normally say that, let's speak about non-kosher. If I cook non-kosher meat now, then it takes in the taste of the meat into the normally kind of iron or something else, what it's made of. And then when I make rice in the same pot, the rice gets a taste from the pot itself, or from the iron. It goes into the rice, and it's actually correct when it comes to many types of metal. Metals does take into it tastes and let them go in. In the industry today, make metals that are better than in old days. So in old days, we really felt the taste. Today, it's harder to feel the taste, but we still have, of course, the same rules. But now I have waited 2 weeks since I made this since this metal got connection with an unkosher food. Did this meat taste in the metal, is it good or is it bad now? And because we normally, if a meat will stand out 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, it's not a good taste. We normally say that if we cook something in a pot or in something that wasn't used the past 24 hours, then the food is okay. Because the taste that went back into the thing we cook now is not good taste, it's a bad taste. It's very important to remember this is only if we do it by mistake. If we mix by purpose, nothing of what I say is okay. So don't go and use non-kosher things to make food. That it's not relevant. But if we do it by mistake, okay, if we use the pot we made for meat, and after a week we use it for milk, we don't throw out the food, we eat it. We don't use it again in the same way. It's forbidden. So in that way, the bad taste has a very relevance here, because when it comes to Pesach, we have the same rule. And if I have my chametz dishes that I use for preparing food, I can't use them in Pesach. And if I use them in Pesach, everything that is in there have to be thrown out. Because we, as I said, normally don't say this rule of mixture that isn't kosher after, if you do it by mistake, are not kosher. So preparing the kitchen, I spoke about sending out all the chametz from your home. It's important to do it properly, but sometimes, as I said last week, we do that as a very good cleaning of the house that isn't connected to the need of getting the chametz out of the home. Like cleaning the windows is not cleaning from chametz, it's cleaning the house for Pesach, very good. But it's not about the chametz in the window. When it comes to preparing the kitchen to Pesach, that's much more complicated because we have to do what we say kosherize the kitchen for Pesach. We don't want any mixture. We're not allowed to use the same plates or other things where we use normally for hot glasses. So many do accept using glass for non-chametz and chametz for chametz and Pesach use, but there are much stricter rules of how you prepare your kitchen for Pesach. And because of that, mainly the things where we prepare, like the oven, like other dishes, either we have a set for Pesach. Many people begin to have that. In the IKEA generations, it has been much easier and cheaper to have a set for Pesach. You take the chametz set, take it all out, and then you have the chametz set. In second hand, in modern days where apartments in city are very expensive, to have a place for the whole set isn't always as easy. And because of that, you either have your own set for Pesach, and you kosherize your oven, and you kosherize other things that you can't just mix or just remove. And by that we have to use a kosher to Pesach kitchen. That's very important. I won't go now into all the details of how we kosherize. The main rule is the same way as it's used in a non-kosher way is the way it goes out. Meaning that things that are used for cooking, we cook it out. If you go in Israel and other places before Pesach, you have places that have huge pots of boiling water where people come with their things from their home and they put it into this boiling water, and by that you could then make them kosher for Pesach. Now we speak mainly about metal things, not like plastic that can't be kosherized and others. And in that way we kosherize our kitchen in a similar way for why we kosherize a non-kosher kitchen to become kosher. We kosherize our kitchen from being non-kosher to Pesach to being kosher to Pesach. So this is very important. The oven has to be very good clean, and then we turn it on the highest heat. It's most problematic with things that where we stake things, like it's as if they have direct fire on them. So if we stake things on several like where we have our grill on the, I don't know how, the net on the grill, there we have to burn it again. So it's just to read, some of the rules are written also in the PDF you got. It's very important to understand that cleaning the house for Pesach is very important, but isn't so very complicated. And as we said, even if we haven't found everything of Chametz, we could eliminate it by saying we don't want the Chametz. Every Chametz that we have in our property is not for is as dust, and by that we ensure that we don't have any Chametz that is wanted in our home. The more complicated part of the preparing the home for Pesach is preparing the kitchen for Pesach. If we want to use it, if we don't want to use it, we can close the oven and that's it. See that there's no rest in it. So for the things we want to use in Pesach, they have to be prepared in a proper way, and that can take more than an hour or two often. So that's the more complicated preparing for Pesach, as we said. When I spoke about mixtures for Pesach, I think, if I remember, someone asked about the water, use of water or other things in Pesach last. So some people take it very, and it's a mainly Ashkenazi tradition to try to be as strict as possible in Pesach. Everything that you could choose to be more strict or less, in Pesach we'll try to be more strict. And people take it really to the, I have to say, extreme. Many things we said now is already in a way, for many, well, that's extreme. But even people, there are people who don't drink water from the water lakes on Pesach, because we said that a mixture, even 1 to 1,000 or more than that, if there is Chametz in it, the whole lake becomes non-kosher. The whole water reserve is non-kosher if there is Chametz in it. And because of that, what they do is they take water from, not like they do wash in water, but they don't drink water from, so they take water, either they fill water in bottles or other kind of bigger pots or things where they have the water from before Pesach. Before Pesach is okay, and they fill water before Pesach, or they just buy mineral water or other things to drink in Pesach. And that's based on this rule that in Pesach, even more than 1 to 1,000 mixture makes the whole mixture unkosher. I, of course, or as you maybe understand, don't keep that rule, but it's important to understand how careful we try to be when it comes to these Pesach rules. We need also to speak about, yes, Rebecca?
Yeah, is that why you sometimes see salt water for Seder plate being sold in the shops?
I don't think so, because
No?
it's normally, we use it normally for Seder evening, and then we make it before Pesach normally.
Yeah.
I think it's just people who want to get everything served. It's weird. I agree.
Okay.
It's weird to see salt water. How hard is it to take water and to mix it with salt? So I'm not sure that is the reason for that, because you could also take mineral water and put salt in it, and that would be kosher also to that. But there are other issues on kosher and non-kosher when it comes to kitniot, other kinds of corns that aren't one of the 5 we spoke about last week. The thing that is called matzah ashira, matzah that is made not only with water, but also with, for example, egg or with fruit juices. And matzah shruya, when you make the matzah, and you mix it with water and you make dishes with that, as many do in Pesach. There are people who don't eat these 3 things, but we'll speak, if we'll have time today, we'll speak about it. I just want to go over to the halacha of matzah, okay? So let's see the source. I think it's the same source we saw last week, if I remember correctly. Let's see the source in here. This is the source of where we last week we concentrated on the rules of Chametz. Let's try to concentrate now in the rules of Matzah. From here, number 15. You don't have the numbers here in English. We are in Exodus chapter 12. Now I read from sentence 15. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, matzot, okay? On the very first day, you should remove leaven from your houses. For whoever eats leavened bread from the first day to the seventh day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. We saw that sentence last week. You should celebrate a sacred occasion on the first day. And here again, it says about preparing food. And then sentence 17, you shall observe the feast of the Matzot. For this very day I brought your ranks out of the land of Egypt. You shall observe this day throughout the ages as an institution for all time. In the first month, from the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat matzot until the 21st day of the month at evening. And then it says again, you shouldn't have any chametz in your house 7 days. So according to these sentences, when should we eat matzot? When are we obligated? Now we speak about chametz, things we shouldn't have or we should cut out. When is the time where we should eat the matzot? According to the sentences we saw now, or maybe take it over to only English. Yeah. When is the time we need to eat the matzot? There's an obligation. We say, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kideshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al chilat matzah. We say, we bless Hashem for the mitzvah to eat matzot. And because of that, we keep the mitzvah. And before we keep the mitzvah, we even say the bracha that we keep the mitzvah. When is the time where we keep the mitzvah? We need to keep the mitzvah of the matzot, according to the text. Yes? Just unmute yourself and say something, anyone who wants to.
You shall eat it from the first month, the 14th day, in the evening until 7 days until the evening.
Okay, so the 14th, like Pesach today starts in the evening 14th. Between 14th and when 15th starts.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the evening at the 14th, 7 days. So how often do you need to eat matzot to keep the mitzvah of the Pesach? How many matzot do you need to have in your home to keep the mitzvah?
I raised my hand.
Yes.
It's outside Israel, it's 8 days.
Yeah, I don't go. It's true. Your comment here is important and correct. In Israel, we celebrate 7 days, and outside Israel, we celebrate 8 days because the 7th days of the last Yom Tov day is 2 days. So that's true. But let's see, according to the Torah, of course, outside we speak about 8 days. How often in Pesach should we eat matzot to keep the mitzvah of the matzot? Let's say I don't like matzot. For one another.
Only the first day.
Only where do you see
evening.
that? Arad, where do you see that?
When you say the blessing and you say that this is that you need to eat matzah, you don't say that you need to eat matzah all the rest of the days.
Yes, so it's very true what you say. We say the bracha for the matzot only on the first day, or outside Israel the first night and the second night. Okay, it's important to say, but let's for now don't separate between Israel and outside Israel. I understand it could be confusing, but originally we say the bracha for the matzot only on the first day and not later. Like when I sit in the sukkah, we also need to sit 7 days in a sukkah when it comes to Sukkot. Every time I sit and eat in the sukkah, I say bracha asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu le'eshev b'sukkah. The bracha for the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah, 7th day I say the bracha. When it comes to Pesach, I eat matzot in the 3rd day, 5th day, 7th day. I only say the bracha for bread, as I normally say for bread. Only in the first evening and outside Israel, also the 2nd evening, I say the bracha for eating the matzot. Yeah, Mariam?
Sorry, jeg tror du svarte på spørsmålet. Jeg skulle bare si det var til CD-måltidet.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not only the first day, but as you say, in the Seder evening, we say the bracha for the matzot. And where do we see that in the sentences? Because if we read sentence number 15, it says, 7 days you shall eat matzot. Where do we see the mitzvah of eating matzot only in the first day?
Under
In the 16, paragraph 16.
In number 16 here, you shall celebrate a sacred occasion on the first day. That one?
17.
And in the 7th day, no work shall be done. 17.
17.
You shall observe the Matzot, or the feast of the Matzot, for in this very day I brought your ranks out of Egypt. You shall observe this day throughout the ages. Okay, so we have the first day is very clearly the day of the Matzot is the first day you see here. Yes, very good. And in addition, if we go over to number 18, it says in the first month from the 14th day of the month at evening.
Yeah.
So now we don't speak about the evening before the 14th or in the start of the 14th, but in the evening after. In the 14th, in old days, they took the lamb and they made the Pesach offering, and in the evening after the 14th, we ate the Pesach offering together with the matzot and the maror. And here we have a clear sentence that tells us that the mitzvah of eating matzot is on the first evening. And because of that, we are obligated to eat matzot on the first evening of Pesach outside Israel, the first and second evening, because we celebrate the first day twice, okay? But it's twice the first day. It's not about any second day you will find in the Torah. And we go into another issue that I don't use more time about of today, why we celebrate 2 Yom Tov outside Israel. But in the first evening, we say we have the mitzvah of the matzah. How do we understand the sentence 7 days you should eat matzot? 7 days you should eat matzot. We understand it that 7 days, if you want to eat bread, you eat matzot. Okay, you don't eat bread, you eat matzot. And we learn it, the Talmud learned it from several things, also where it says about the 7th day, that is also a Yom Tov, a special celebration, and doesn't mention eating matzot there. And based on that, we understand that it's only the first day that where you have an obligation to eat matzot. Other days, you have obligation not to have any chametz, not to eat any chametz, meaning that you eat matzot if you want to eat bread. Because we have a big difference between the first evening and the rest of the week. When it comes to that, there is another important, I'll go over to Hebrew also here. sentence that makes the obligation around eating matzot, and especially eating matzot in the first evening, a little more strict, okay? Because it says in sentence 17, it says you should observe the feast of matzot, okay? Chag HaMatzot is the name in the Torah. And we understand that normally when we read the sentences, you have to keep the Pesach rules, the whole holiday rules. But the way it's written, as you can see also in the translation, is Ushmartem et hamatzot, not Ushmartem et Chag HaMatzot. So some choose to understand this sentence as, okay, it means the feast of matzot, as this translation explains in a way. But the way we read it is you should observe or keep, shlishmor, the matzot. You should keep the matzot. How should we keep the matzot? What does that mean to keep the matzot? Is a question that is then discussed by many. What does it mean to keep the matzot? Okay, and the normal way of understanding that, if we take out the translation that starts to say that it's keeping the chag of the matzot, is to keep the matzot from becoming chametz. Meaning that when we go out to the field and we take the corn, I don't know, remember the English word for it. Anyone who could help me?
Harvested.
Harvest, yes, I should have known that. Harvest the corn out of the field. We should keep that they don't get any water, and after that, after they're made to flour, we have to keep that the flour doesn't get any connection to water. And after that, when we mix it with water to dough, we have to keep the dough that it won't have 18 days, not be too hot until it's baked to a matzah. Okay, so that is keeping the matzot. Okay. And based on that, we have clear rules of the need of keeping matzot, okay? And we're only allowed to eat, especially on the first evening, because we said the mitzvah is in the first evening. So according to the sentence, we understand that in the first evening, we have to eat matzot that are kept. Ushmartem et hamatzot, you have to keep the matzot. So we are, especially because of this sentence, strict in the first evening to eat matzot that are kept, okay? Today we call it matzah shmura, but I'll explain now why that's a little more complicated than that. So what does it mean to keep the matzot? Some say you should keep it from the moment you mix the flour with water. That is the most, a dangerous point, because then you take actually the flour and you mix it with water. And if you keep it from that moment, it's matzot that are being kept, matzot shemurot. Some people say you should keep it only from when you make it flour. We make a corn to flour, you often use water and other things. That is the point you have to begin to keep it. And some people say you have to keep an eye on the flour from the harvest to see that no water has been in contact with the corn. And since we have different meanings, of course, there are different ways of doing it. Now I'll go over to practice what we do today. All the matzot that we buy in the shops are kept from the time they have become dough, okay? All the matzot that are kept, even in a way kept from the point they have become flour, because the flour is also made in a protected way, and then it's put into packages, and in that way it's kept. So in a way we could say that the matzot we have today, and any matzah we buy, are matzot shmurot from that time. But if you all go to a kosher shop, and unfortunately in Oslo we didn't get the matzot shmurot this year, so I have to take with me in some days from Israel some packages of matzot, what we call matzot shmurot. Matzot shmurot are matzot that are kept an eye on from the point of harvest. Okay, and why are we so strict of that? Because the sentence we saw that says that matzot have to be kept from the point of, they have to be kept. Ushmartem et hamatzot. And because we have to eat matzot that are totally according to the mitzvah in the first evening, outside Israel, both evenings, then we choose to eat the matzot in the first evening, or at least the matzot we eat for keeping the mitzvah. When we say in the Seder evening, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav etzivanu al achilat matzah, the matzah we eat should be kept matzot, okay? And because of that, many people are strict with finding matzot shmurot from harvest time when they, for the matzot in the first evening. It doesn't mean that the matzot they eat all week are non-kosher, they're kosher. But since the sentence says, especially keep, we eat the kept matzot the first evening. Some people, and because of that, they take from harvest. If you don't have matzot shmurot, and you eat normal matzot that are kosher, it's still, as we said, considered to be shmurot in many ways, okay? So it's okay. It's just to be more strict, to go according to all the opinions, to eat matzot shmurot from the harvest, kept from the harvest in the first evening. Some people even choose to eat matzot shmurot all week. So they take from the first day, and they only eat matzot shmurot in Pesach from harvest. It's a more weird tradition, but I think it becomes also more and more normal in many places. Most eat matzot normally with no problem. It's totally kosher, no doubt about it. But some try to eat matzot shmurot from harvest all week also. Now,
short question. Why do you have to go to Israel to buy the real thing? Isn't it possible to buy some kind of packaged
No, you don't need. I'm in Israel now, and I'm going to Norway on Wednesday, and the kosher shop ordered matzot shmurot from harvest, and it didn't come in the delivery.
Okay, so it was just,
I'll take with me from Israel. It doesn't have to come from Israel. We normally are in Norway, at least, buy from Holland matzot and matzot shmurot. It's no problem. It doesn't have to be from Israel. It's just So when we speak about keeping the matzot, that is the way we do it. Some understand the sentence in a different way. Keeping the matzot is keeping that the preparation of the matzot will be made for matzot. Okay? There is a big discussion in the Talmud on, do mitzvot need kavanah, intention, okay? If I need to hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah and be prepared to hear the shofar, or if I hear the noise of the shofar by mistake, did I keep the mitzvah or not, okay? Do I need to light candles for Shabbat? It's not a mitzvah from the Torah. In understanding that these candles are for Shabbat, or I lighted candles and then I had made the mitzvah. Okay, does it have to have a conscience on your mind that you're keeping a mitzvah now? And according to some, the keeping the matzot is, in addition to what we said, also understand in a way that you have to make the matzot intentionally to matzot. And that has a very big consequence, because if we say that, and we normally choose to say both of them, the matzot has to be made by someone who is obligated to eat the matzot. Meaning that someone who is 10 years old and make matzot, these matzot won't be kosher because he is not obligated yet as a young person to eat matzot himself. Or if someone that isn't Jewish makes the matzot, then these matzot are not kosher. Not that there is any problem with the hands of the non-Jew. A non-Jew can make many things that are kosher. But since it says, Ushmartem et matzot, the matzot has to be made to make the mitzvah. And then the only one who can make the matzot is the one who is himself obligated to make the mitzvah. Adult men and women, Jewish older men and women, that's the ones who are allowed to do it, because it has to be, and in addition, he has to do it in sake of making the mitzvah. Because of that, if we go to places that make matzot, you'll see that everyone, before they begin making the dough, they say L'shem mitzvat matzah. They say in their words that they make the matzot to keep the mitzvah of matzot. It's in a way enough to have it in your conscience. You don't have to say it, but after you have said it, you have made it very clear that you do this in the purpose of making the matzot. And because of that, we keep both of the rules of matzot. The matzot have to be made, have to be kept, as we said, maybe from the point where we make it to a dough, but some people keep it even from the harvest, and then we call it matzot shmuot, especially for the first evening. And the making of the matzot has to be made by someone who is obligated. And that's how we keep matzot. All the matzot you get with kosher stamp on is made by, maybe, I'll make it more complicated in a moment, by a Jew who makes the matzah, and they keep it from the point it's made the dough. If it's said matzah shmura, it's kept from the harvest. But what do we do with the machines? Most of the matzot we get today are made by machines. Is the machine itself obligated to keep mitzvot? Do we see the machine as something you do it in conscience of making a mitzvah here? And that has been a discussion, what I said now. Some people say, of course, machine is as long as the one who turns on the machine makes it in the same way as you use other things that helps you to make the mitzvah. You use a table, you use things. When you use the oven, you use things to make the matzot. So if the machine helps you to make the matzot, as long as the one who turns on the machine does it in the right conscience, even if the machine itself makes the dough, puts it out, stakes the matzot, as long as it's turned on in the right way, then all the matzot that are made in that machine are kosher for Pesach. And that's how we get the matzot that have the same shape. All of these matzot we buy, none of them are handmade. You could be sure about that. Some people say, no, since it says it has to be made in the right conscience, then we only eat matzot that are handmade. Okay? I think all Chabad, for example, only eat handmade matzot. You see, normally they're round, they're much more expensive, taste a little different. Only eat handmade matzot for Pesach. Mainly for the first evening. Some even, as I said, all week, only eat handmade matzot because of ushmartem et matzot. You have to keep the matzot and it has to be made by someone. Some people go the other way, say it's better to eat matzot from the machine and not handmade, because the way the machines are today, the chance for a mistake, the chance for it takes too long, the chance of not controlling the temperature correctly, or any other problem is much smaller in machines. So some people eat only handmade matzot. Some people say it's better They don't say you can't eat handmade matzot because that's how matzot has been made before the machines came to our world. But they say it's better to eat matzot shmurot from the machine because then it's a better keeping that no problem has been made here. And that's the purpose of the keeping, to see that there is no problem. Because of that, I say it to understand that there are different frames of matzot we could buy and way of buying them towards having matzot that are kosher to Pesach. Because of that, we have all of these definitions. When you see a matzah, is it handmade, is it machine made, is it shmura from harvest, is it shmura only from it's become dough, and the different traditions around that. When I said I'll try, normally we try to finish half past, but I'll use some few more of your minutes just to mention the other topics that are maybe more details in the PDF. Spoke about the tradition we have to be extra strict when it comes to Chametz and to Matzah in Pesach. You heard it very well in this lesson and last week's lesson. Because of that, we have several other topics for people who don't eat things in a special way. So first thing is kitniot. I suppose many of you have heard kitniot. Kitniot are kind of corn that are not the part of these five, rice and others. We spoke about it a little last week. It's many kind, and it's a discussion what is kitniot, what is not kitniot. They're normally they are weighed as kind of beans that are inside something else, so we could call it beans generally, but it's not only beans, so it's hard to define. Things that are similar. The reasons why many don't eat kitniot is that they are similar in a way to the corns that are made chametz. You could often make flour out of them. And since they are not chametz, but are similar to chametz, we don't eat it. Others say also they're often kept in a same way of storage where you keep the corn, and because of that you often mix them, especially in old days where you have a shop and you have or a storage room with all the different kind of corns, and you often find other things in your rice or other things in your corns because they mix. Because of that, they don't eat it. It's a tradition mainly Ashkenazi Jews keep. Almost all Ashkenazi Jews don't eat kitniot. Also, many Northern African, what we call today Sephardic Jews, don't eat kitniot. Not all of them, some of them. And there are different rules around this kind of kitniot. Some Northern Africans, in similar way, don't eat sugar. They say it's similar. I know Northern African Jews don't eat sugar. Ashkenazi Jews do eat sugar. The question around kitniot is not chametz. You're not allowed to have it in your home, and so on. You don't eat it. Okay, that's the tradition, not to eat it. And then there are different discussion, as I said, what is defined as kitniot and what is not defined as kitniot, and does it only mean when you eat the kitniot themselves after they have been in contact with water? Because if they haven't been in contact with water, then it's not chametz even there. Some just don't eat it at all. And another question is when you make, for example, oil out of them, is that oil chametz or not chametz? In the way you produce oil, you normally don't mix water. Don't want any water in oil production. It's bad for the oil. So many people don't eat kitniot, but do eat oil that is made of kitniot when that is going into food. There are many different traditions around that. I won't go into all of them. It's traditions. For many, I have to say, for many Ashkenazi Jews, it's hard to keep the tradition of kitniot, mainly if you live in Israel, because you could have so many things in the supermarkets that are made kosher to Pesach, and in every second or more than that, it says only for those who eat kitniot, because they use these kind of corns that can make many dishes of. Okay. For some Jews, the taste of Seder evening is the rice on the table. That because you're not allowed to eat bread and so on, rice is the main dish, or besides the meat in the Seder evening. Of course, not Ashkenazi Jews. For others, rice in Pesach is, oh, how could you think about it? Because we don't eat kitniot in Pesach. The normal tradition in the Nordic countries is not to eat kitniot because it's mainly Ashkenazi Jews who are, and there's a question when someone Sephardi come to a place where the tradition is not to eat kitniot, is he allowed to eat kitniot because he has another tradition, or should he keep the tradition in the place where he is? The same question will be if I go to Morocco, where people in Morocco not all eat kitniot, to another place where people eat kitniot and everyone eats kitniot. Should I not eat kitniot, or could I do the same tradition as everyone? That's a question around how tradition changes. I just want to mention the question without answering it. Another topic I want to speak about shortly, so we could go on next time to a different topic, is Matzah Ashira. The idea is, we said when we mix the corn with water, and after 18 minutes, more or less, it's a question of temperature, it becomes Chametz. If we choose to mix it with egg, or mix it with sweet juice, it makes it a kind of cake. We keep the same rules according to not waiting the amount of time until it's finished baked. Is that kosher or is it not kosher? And some people say as long as the time between the mixture of the dough and the matzah to be finished, as long as that time is according to the matzah time, the finished product is kosher. It's important to say you can't eat it as a matzah for Pesach, for the Seder evening, but it's not Chametz, so you're allowed to eat it. Others say, and that's the main Ashkenazi tradition, is not to eat that at all, because in a way we don't know. We only know that we have corn and water and the way they work. Maybe if the juice or egg affect the dough in another way. So to be sure and clear, we don't eat any what we call matzah shira. That is also the tradition in most Nordic countries. As I understand, not to eat matzah shira in Pesach. I can say matzah shira, if you eat that, opens a big opening for many dishes that are good, or mainly baking products that are good and sweet and taste a little more alive than a matzah, for those who think matzah is a little boring. Some people love the matzah as is and don't want anything else. Okay, that's matzah ashira. The last thing I want to speak about is matzah shvuya. Okay, what do? You take the matzah, you make it back to a flour, or you put it in something else, and then you bake it again. And the question is if that's a problem. So today we have matzah flour you could buy in the shops. That means they take a matzah and they crush it back to a flour, and now you mix it. Normally it's not enough with water, with egg, or some other things, and you bake it again. Or you make the very known kneidlach in the soup. That is crushed matzah or matzah flour with eggs and other things, and you bake it in the soup. And in that way, we tried to bake things, because we don't have any flour besides potato flour that came later when potato came into the world from America. We don't have any flour to use to bake things. Some people say that even that is not allowed, because they say we only know that the matzah, in the way it's baked, is okay. After it's mixed with water again, maybe it becomes chametz again, even if it's baked already. Okay, That is a less known tradition in many places. As we know, Knedelach is a very known kosher to Pesach dish that many Ashkenazi Jews eat. But some people are very strict without that also. It goes so far. So I'll just say the norm is to eat it. We sell it in our shops, and the norm is to use the matzah to make many new things out of it. But if you hear about someone who says, I don't eat matzah shruya, means I don't eat matzah that has been put in water again. My bigger brother, Alav Shalom, he took the Chabad tradition on himself, and they in their home, they ate the matzah, only handmade matzah, not on the table where they eat other things, so the matzah won't get wet from the water and other things. So they had the matzah in another table. They ate the matzah out of a bag, okay, so that it won't get wet. And after they finish eating matzah, you could continue eating the food, okay. And one way it seems okay. That's a little insane. Now you go too far. In the second way, I want us to conclude this teaching by understanding how pretty it is. I think pretty. Everyone could have there. That we try to keep the halacha of matzot and Pesach as strict as possible. Normally, we try to eat one in the home of the other all year, and not being okay. How do you? In Pesach, there is a tradition that you could be extra strict, and it's okay to say no. I won't go to your home this year because we were. So the being strict in keeping the matzot and the chametz I think is a very nice. It's a mainly Ashkenazi tradition. A Sephardic tradition is a much more relaxed in a good way. I don't mean like we go very far with all these strict rules, but generally, I think it's very nice to see how much we try to keep it according to the text and keep it possible. Every family have their balance in the end, and the community have their balance in the end. So, as example, the Ashkenazi tradition we follow normally in Norway is not to eat kitniot, not to eat matzah shira, but to eat matzah shruya. And we normally use the normal matzot and not the matzot that are from harvest, kept from harvest. Besides some people who buy specially these for the first evening. That is the balance in Oslo. It's important to understand all of these topics and understand how complicated it is and how also identity it is. So that's in that we finish the 2 lessons of speaking about the Chametz, about the Matzot. Some topics we have defined, I think, more clear. Some I just mentioned so that we have said them, and if you want to understand more, read in the PDF or other places in the internet where these things are very good described. Next week, we will begin to speak about the Seder evening itself, how we celebrate Pesach, how the evening should be, what is the content of that evening, go on from these halachic frames of Matzah and Chametz. Thank you all, and Shavua Tov.
Rabbi,
Yes.
can I speak to you?
Yeah.